Thank you, guys. And I'm super excited to be with you because I think this is super important for young people. I'm like the young person representative, so it's awesome. Um, but yeah, I kind of wanted to share a little bit about, I guess, as we're talking about Gen Z and the whole like 18 to 30s giving more in the church, like as somebody that's on the grounds, but also somebody that's in that bracket. Oh, hello. As somebody that's in that bracket, but as somebody that's also contributing to, I guess, spiritual formation, evangelism, and discipleship, what makes me excited to give, but also what are maybe some of the barriers that are stopping the rest of the young people in the church from taking part in generosity too. So some of the things that we've been talking about throughout today, but I just really wanted to hone in. I think as we're seeing with this generation, a lot of the young people in churches now aren't, the Christians that had grown up with their grandparents or their parents going to church. Like a lot of these young people have no church background at all. Like a lot of them are either having dreams in the middle of the night and running to the nearest church, or maybe at school interacting with other Christians in their youth groups or at universities and sparking those faith conversations that are bringing them into the church. And I also think, as somebody that works within social media, I think it would be you can't deny the impact that social media has had in the conversation on the quiet revival and young people engaging with faith. I think social media has created almost a disarming barrier when it comes to bringing young people into the church and teaching them about concepts in spiritual formation like giving, like finance, like generosity. And some of the things that I've seen, and maybe some of you guys have seen in your context too, is you might ask a young person like, oh, how did you come to church? And they might say, oh, I found about it on TikTok. And many of us might not even know how to even use TikTok to engage those young people, but they see other people their age going, hey, I'm going to this church on Sunday, come to church with me. And that within itself creates this almost like disarmed barrier, like, oh, if this person that looks like me and sounds like me and is young like me is engaging with Jesus, then maybe Jesus has something for me. And if they're giving to their church in whatever way they are, maybe there's something within the church that means that I should be a part of it and be involved and give to it as well. And so I have like just a couple thoughts. I think the conversation that we have on the theology and really talking about finance and giving is important. I think we often underestimate what young people can handle. But I was just having a conversation before coming up here, and I was saying how, young people are on Netflix watching, the, I guess, more explicit shows that might be outside of their age range. But when it comes to faith, sometimes we want to dial the conversation back because we think that they can't handle it. And I think when it comes to conversations on giving and finance, like, let's not underestimate what young people can handle, and let's not underestimate where they are with, I guess, thinking about how do I apply my faith to all areas of my life, not just Sunday attendance or not just attendance in my youth group, but how do I live as a kingdom person in every area of my life, including my finances. And even more on that, like, I think it's, with our social media generation, it's hard to kind of trust anything that you see online these days. Like, it's hard to trust the news, it's hard to trust opinions, but yet we see more young people giving into the church because they do trust it. And I think as a church, let's get on board with using social media. Let's meet young people where they're at in the conversations, where they're trying to figure out what they believe and what they trust in. I think as a church, if we can get in that space, we can see more young people galvanized in their giving as they're starting to be galvanized just in their faith walk and in their discipleship as a whole. I also think that generosity is cultural. I don't think it's taught, I think it's caught. And I think in churches, when you're around people that actually do give and want to steward the environment that they're in, I think young people see that, and it speaks to that authenticity. I think in churches where, there's young adults around, what is the church doing to shepherd and steward those young people? Like, are we discipling them? Are we giving them leadership positions? Are we bringing them into the conversation of leading and in church? Because I think when young people feel ownership about a space, they're more likely to invest. And I don't just mean invest financially, but I mean their time. I mean actually talking about it outside of the church and bringing their friends in. And I mean, even in London, we're seeing a lot of like these joint prayer gatherings where thousands of young adults are coming together and inviting their friends to experience Jesus in a midweek. Like there seems to be some kind of an investment of time because they see a value and an importance in that. And so as church leaders, like, are we showing a value and an importance in those young people too? There's been a lot of talk about thank you all. There's been a lot of talk about the younger generation, and somebody said something earlier today about how the older generation aren't giving as much. And I think there was something that was said about like generosity and how it links to joy. And I think when you're sowing into something and you're seeing impact, that makes you want to sow even more. And I think as young people, we're coming into the church and we're really trying to be on fire for our faith, but also like we want the mentorship and we want the partnership and we want to be poured into by the next generation in every context, including the area of finance. And I think if we both work together, it's like that Amos 3:3, like how can two walk together unless they agree? But also in the book of Acts where it talks about your old men will dream dreams and your young men will prophesy, like it's the both and. It's not just the younger generation, it's us and the older generation working together to see the kingdom of heaven established on earth. And so I think we need to work more on how do we collaborate together as two generations in the church where God wants to bless all of us and he wants to use us to change society. And so, yeah, those are a few of my thoughts as to why we're excited to give, but also posing a few challenges as a church. If we thought about like working together as the generations, if we thought about social media, then imagine what God could do if we were all united in those things. So, yeah, hope that was helpful. And yeah, thank you guys so much.